me now talk about outbound. And this is what all of us need to be doing. We need to not be watching and waiting and wondering what's going to be happening. We need to adopt the right mindset, and we need to decide to make things happen. So again, people are answering the phone. So here's the framework. Now again, we're going to send you these slides, I'll make these slides available in our platform as a PDF. So you'll get all of these slides, and you'll get a document that has this framework. So you'll get this in Word form that you can work with. And this is the framework for outbound that I've worked with organizations all over the world, and it's delivered amazing results. So the first thing is you've got to introduce yourself. All right, so hey, it's Tony from Sales IQ. That's all you say. You don't talk about the credentials of the company or explain what the company does. And then you need some pragmatic personalization. Personalization that took you seconds to generate, not minutes or hours. And the best personalization is a common trusted relationship, in essence, a referral. If someone called me and said, hey, Tony, Kian McLaughlin thinks that we should get together, you know what? You've got your meeting. I trust Kian enormously. He's not going to jeopardize his relationship with me by suggesting that I meet with someone that's a waste of my time. So you've almost got your meeting, right? So a trusted relationship, common connection is really important. Obviously, Sales Navigator, LinkedIn can help you do those things. The next best thing for personalization is a trigger event, something that's happened in the marketplace that creates awareness of opportunity. And obviously the coronavirus and the Great Recession that we're in right now are huge trigger events, right? They're making people aware that they need to cut costs, they need to improve cash flow, they need to find ways to automate and operate more efficiently. So if you speak to those things, you know, they're very important trigger events. The next thing that you can refer to that's the least powerful of all three is play back an attribute. You know, something that they've said in a LinkedIn post, an attribute you've noticed about their business, but avoid fear mongering. So you introduce yourself briefly, you provide some personalization to warm up the whole conversation. You've done all of that within seconds, and then you just jump in. Hey, Mike, I've got some ideas on how I think you could. And then you say what that is, and it's a business result, it's an outcome for them. And then you say, and in a way that, or but in a way that, and then you have a secondary result for them. So it's a double-edged sword that's going to cut through. It's in essence a double-edged benefit statement, but it's not an attribute about us. It's a real result for them we know they care about in their role. And you simply say, hey, have you got 15 minutes now, or when can we find 20 minutes in your calendar later this week? So try and have the conversation then. If they go, well, look, I need to know a little more, then you have a sentence that goes a little deeper. You say, hey, sure, it's about a strategy of, or it's about how you can. Don't just repeat the same thing back again, right? Just go to that next level of depth. But here's the really important thing. Resist the temptation of talking about yourself. Don't say it's about how our solutions. Don't make us the hero. They are the hero of the story. And then again, you ask for time. And if they want to engage in the conversation right then and there, make sure you have a few great questions ready to go. So that's the framework. It respects time and it communicates in a way that leaders really respect. There's an awesome guy called Phil Cleary who runs sales enablement for Salesforce, who's one of my clients here in Asia Pacific. And I've often heard Phil say that the way senior leaders think is they're thinking in their own mind when you turn up, and they don't really know you yet. And even if they do know you, they're thinking, be brief and be gone. You've got to show this respect for time. I want to give you an example from back in 2007, but it was an incredibly negative event. So how do you engage with someone really senior in the midst of negativity? So for those in the USA that are watching this, in the UK, they understand rugby league. I don't think Americans understand Australian sport that well. But our equivalent of the NFL in America, the equivalent here is the NRL, the National Rugby League. And there was a team, the Melbourne Storm, won our Super Bowl. They won the premiership 2 years in a row. And in our competition, what we do here is we have salary caps for teams so that we don't have a situation where the team that's the richest or with the biggest checkbook ends up winning the competition all of the time. So every team has to honor a salary cap in how they pay their playing roster. It had turned out that the Melbourne Storm had cheated the salary cap. They'd had sponsors making side payments to players secretly, and it all came out. They were stripped of their two Super Bowl titles, in essence, the two premiership titles. They were fined a huge amount of money. They were stripped points from the current competition, so they couldn't win the current competition either. You'll see on the right-hand side of the screen there, they're on the front page of the newspaper. And News Limited owned the Melbourne Storm, and they put a CEO in called Ron Gauci, and I talked to Ron. And Ron Gauci was told by News Limited, the Melbourne Storm as a club is damaging the News Limited brand. No one's going to buy the club unless we get it back to profitability. It's bleeding red ink, right? We're putting you in to turn it around. Now, here's what I would have done if I wanted to get to Ron. And let's imagine that I sold CRM software. Everybody watching this uses CRM systems themselves. I would have simply called Ron and said, hey, Ron, I don't pretend to know everything that's going on inside the club right now, but I think there's an opportunity for you to rebuild membership really quickly and with the highest average spend per fan in the NRL. When can we find 20 minutes? And if he said to me, well, that sounds a bit grand, Tony, or I'd need to know more than that, I'd say, sure, look, it's around a strategy of you truly knowing your fans for personalization. It's how we're seeing the best, most profitable sports clubs in the world do really well. How's your calendar for later this week? And if he said, look, I'm stuck in traffic, let's have the conversation now. I'd say, sure, look, do you mind if I ask, where does rebuilding membership fit within your priorities? My next question would have been, hey, Ron, how well do you think the club really knows fans? Because if they don't truly know them, you've got no chance of executing on personalization, which is how you drive up average spend. And it's how you do the best job of recruiting and actually retaining fans. So that's an example of approaching someone that's going through negativity, a huge crisis, and staying positive. What I wouldn't do is say, hey, Ron, I saw on the front page of the paper yesterday all of the bad things about the club. Like, I don't need to do that. Don't attach yourself to negativity. He knows. Just go ahead and be positive. The next example that I want to provide is with the permission of one of my great clients. I work with the Flight Centre Travel Group. They're going through incredibly tough times right now. They run an incredibly positive, wonderful culture as a business, just great people, and are focused, laser focused on providing value for their customers. But the reality now, and I work with their business to business brands, not their retail brands. They've got about 5 business to business brands that look after corporates, events, travel. And the reality for them is right now people aren't traveling. So how would you create a narrative into when you're a vendor, when no one's transacting with you right now, they're just not flying and they're just not booking hotel rooms. And the thing we all need to do in selling in tough times is we need to find a way to make the excuse the reason to meet. So I believe objections are for amateurs. Anticipate what the objection would be and position in a way where it doesn't even come up. So, what Flight Centre Travel Group, what their B2B brands are doing right now is they're calling their clients and they're having huge empathy with them and making sure they're okay. That's the first thing they've done, right? Be a good human being. They absolutely did that. The next thing they do is they call back a little later and they simply say something like, hey, with everything going on right now, this is the ideal time. There's an opportunity for you to review your travel policy and your travel processes so that as people start traveling again, you're doing it in a way where you've got greater control and where you can lower costs and lower risk for your staff and for the organization. And if the person says, oh, well, how do you think we could do that? It's really around your own travel policy and the way you run the process of travel to make sure that you're getting compliance. That's where there's an opportunity to drive, anywhere from typically 6% to maybe 12% of cost out of the business in the way you're running it as a process. And with no one traveling right now, you're not going to have any change management issues if you decide to look at this. When can we find some time to get together and have the conversation? Now, this speaks to the issue of organizations want to control costs. They know that things are going to return to normal. Now is the perfect time for them to invest the time and effort in improving their policy and their processes. And it's a way for that company, for Flight Centre Travel Group, to provide value for their clients, even though they're not transacting. So really think about that in your own world.